Joining me now from Los Angeles is Cheryl Dorsey. She is a retired LAPD sergeant and author of Black and Blue, The Creation of a Social Advocate. Appreciate you being with us.
Thank you for having me.
So let's start with the shooting of a black teenage boy by an 84-year-old white Kansas City man. What does it say about this country right now when a young black teenager gets shot for knocking on the wrong door?
Well, it says that folks are out of control. This was someone who was feigning fright, if you will. Having black skin in and of itself should not pose an imminent threat. And we know now that his rationale was left wanting. He has been charged with 2 very serious criminal offenses. It was not reasonable for him to say that he was afraid of a young black teenager at his door who merely rang the doorbell. He shot through a glass door when he saw this young black teenager on his front porch. I hope that the arrest will have a chilling effect on others who are similarly situated and want to feign that same fright of a young black teenager.
And you mentioned that he has been charged, but this 84-year-old man earlier had been released. What's your reaction to that?
Well, listen, police want to make sure that they get it right. We only get one bite at the apple, and they only had a very short window of opportunity in which to charge him once he was arrested, 24 hours. And so rather than have a charge that would not stick, would not hold because they had not properly concluded their initial investigation, they let him go. And so I know that, it was very off-putting to many, and folks, in the community want swift action, but it has to be done right, because if it's not done right, the last thing that family or this young man would have wanted was the case to be thrown out because of some technicality. And so I don't find fault or have an issue with the fact that he was taken into custody and then released a couple hours later.
And how do you expect this to play out?
Well, I don't know. I mean, we'll have to wait and see. Will he cop a plea? Will he agree to something to avoid going to prison? I mean, he's an octogenarian. Certainly, if he's convicted of this crime, there are sentencing guidelines that may come into effect if he's a first-time offender. His age, his health, all of those things could be factors. And so it's very difficult to predict exactly what and how a jury, if found guilty, will sentence this man.
And in another case that we're covering, an Ohio grand jury declined to charge 8 Akron police officers who fatally shot Jayland Walker, a 25-year-old black motorist. What is your reaction to that outcome?
Well, certainly the number of rounds that were fired was over the top, in my opinion. Over several dozen, 46 shots hit him. I think they fired 90-something times between the 8 officers. And so I'm believing that there was probably contagious gunfire, which is what we refer to when officers hear shots being fired. They don't necessarily know that they're not coming from the person that they're pursuing. And while they said that this young man, Jayland, had fired at least 1 shot at the officers while inside of his vehicle, we know that once he exited the vehicle, he was not in possession of the handgun. It was in the car. And so I often say that, when police officers kill black folks, there's only one version. And that's the one that these officers have told. And great deference is given to their version of events. They said that he turned in their direction. Their perception was that he was going to fire on them again. And so they all opened up on him. And so it's very difficult to argue what's in an officer's mind when they use deadly force.
Retired LAPD Sergeant Cheryl Dorsey, thank you so much for talking with us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.